Award-winning writer, sociologist, and geopolitical analyst from Canada, Mr. Mahdi Darius Nazemroaya, welcome to The Inside. Well, sir, according to a recent American intelligence report published in the American International Periodical, which specializes in defense and intelligence affairs, it says that the U.S. administration cannot save Egyptian President Morsi any longer from falling, and that his fall is just very imminent. Not just his fall, the fall of the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt is just imminent. What's your take on this?
Well, I think the way we have to pose this question is, has the United States, and specifically by that I mean the Obama administration, has it been trying to save Morsi and the Akhwan government there? I don't think that they've been trying to save them. I think that they've been letting them take Egypt into a free fall, and they want Egypt in a coma. The U.S. administration there played the Muslim Brotherhood government against the Egyptian military. They have a plan B. If Morsi collapses, this just makes Egypt a much more chaotic place, and it keeps it in a coma. We're talking about the most populous, largest Arab state, the natural leader of the Arab countries. Under Gamal Abdel Nasser's presidency, Egypt was the country that used to stand up to the West.
Is it still the natural leader?
No, it's not. Since Sadat, Egypt has been kept in a coma. It's always been looking internally. After that, Mubarak continued Sadat's policies, and this has always shielded Israel, of course. And the Muslim Brotherhood has just continued the policy. The Muslim Brotherhood has continued what Sadat and Mubarak have done. They've continued to keep Egypt in a coma, and they've continued to protect Israel.
You know, since the fall of Mubarak, chaos has never stopped in Egypt. Rather, it exacerbated. What do you say on this?
I think this is exactly what the United States and its allies like Israel want in Egypt. I mean, they want Arab countries and this region to be filled with weak governments that are internally divided. They're too busy all looking inward to look outward, or to have assertive foreign policies and independent foreign policies.
And it says that the Egyptian military is ready to important events that will take place in Egypt near the end of this year, different from the events that occurred at the beginning of the revolution, where the Muslim Brotherhood got help from Hamas in Gaza to stand in face of the Egyptian military.
All right. Well,
what do you think might happen at the end of this year?
I think that the military you could see a military junta in Cairo. You can see the military take control. Actually, let me rephrase that. We can see the military take back control. What we've had in Egypt all these years has been military governments. Even Mubarak, Sadat, they've all been military governments. They've been wearing, of course, suits and ties like civilians, but it's always been generals in charge of that country and its businesses. And we're just going to see the military take back control of that country. And of course, the United States prefers the military take control, because the military has always guaranteed Israel's security. It's always guaranteed U.S. supremacy in Egypt. And it's always guaranteed that the Suez Canal would be basically under U.S. control in one way or another. So they want the military to take back power. And of course, I want to emphasize this. The Egyptian military, above all things, is an internal police force. It's not there to defend Egypt's sovereignty against outside players. It's there to police the Egyptian people. And this is why the United States has given Egypt the second most military aid after Israel.
Egyptian military coup in 48 hours if no solution found. The military just made a public statement on Egyptian television. It appears the country is close to another military coup. Some bullet points here. The military says it won't be part of politics. Well, we just learned that, right? Egypt military says national security subjected to grave danger. Egyptian military says protests unprecedented. Says homeland facing dire situation, and say they will not be party to politics or power. They also they're saying or calling for meeting the demands of the people. Egyptian military, I guess the people means Israel and the U.S. Egypt military may have to offer roadmap after 48 hours. So in other words, do as the people want, calm this down now, or we will step in within 40 hours. So Again, who are the people? Egyptian clerics warn of civil war ahead of mass protests. So kind of a follow-up. It says Egypt risks sliding into civil war. The country's leading religious authority warned on Friday. So this is what they would want, right? Like you said, I like that word, coma. And that's what they want in Libya, coma. For probably what they want everywhere, too. Afghanistan, wherever they go. In the name of humanitarianism, 4 Egyptian ministers to quit Morsi's cabinet amid protests. The senior Egyptian official told AFP on Monday that ministers of tourism, environment, communications, and legal affairs have tendered their letters of resignation to Prime Minister. Candle. Morsi tries to ram Sharia constitution down Egyptian people's throats. So, the attempts to push through Sharia constitution go against Egyptian culture and tradition and spark an even worse uprising as people don't want religion to be dictated, political analysts have noted. Next up, remember this, Erdogan says Turkey and Brazil protests, part of the same foreign-led conspiracy to destabilize governments. Could this be Egypt as well? Egypt opposition sets July 2nd deadline for President Morsi to quit. So they said, we give Morsi until 5 p.m. on Tuesday, July 2nd to leave power, allowing state institutions to prepare for early presidential election, a statement by Egypt's opposition. Again, you can be rest assured it's controlled opposition. So when you go with Morsi or you go with controlled opposition, same in Turkey. These are all real grievances by people, but the people, the actual quote, the term people, it's basically it's whatever the international or whatever the established power structure is. That's the people, not the actual people. So you're talking about Israeli U.S. interest. So like in Turkey, the protesters had some initial grievances that were legitimate, but I would agree with Erdogan as far as those protests being kind of provoked or unrest fomented, and so you don't want to go with the opposition. You don't want to go with Erdogan, right? They just give you the kind of a crap sandwich, whatever. They give you the turd sandwich or a big giant douche. Those are your options. So welcome everyone to Global Government News. If you're new, this is my website, ggnonline.com. I have a poll up here. What is your favorite GGN topic? I'm just kind of curious. The war on terror, liberty, sovereignty news. So far, 33% say that. 0% for Big Brother, and eugenics, social engineering, 50%, followed by other, so 16%. So, I guess maybe if there's other news, maybe if it's like health news or something, chemtrails, right in the comment board. I know with the Big Brother news, you just get so saturated with it, like the NSA stuff. I mean, they're basically telling us stuff that we've already known for years. Again, so it just leads to the point that why are they telling us this? Maliki warns of sectarian and Takfirisit Fatwas, so threatening Iraq region. The Prime Minister Maliki warned on Saturday of dangerous sectarian and Takfiri fatwa that threaten Iraq and the region, calling on Iraqis to stand up. From what I heard, Maliki is basically, he's not just a Western stooge. He was one of the looters. He was one of the looters there after the fall of Saddam and that government. And he just still happens to be in power, wearing a nice suit, kind of like in Egypt, right? Syria's Zoabi Egyptian Muslim Brotherhood model failed. So a Syrian information minister on Monday said that the Muslim Brotherhood model failed in Egypt as thousands of Egyptians took to the streets. He said, it is clear the Muslim Brotherhood is incapable of running the state in Egypt. Their model has failed forever. The Muslim Brotherhood's regime in Egypt is dead, but the death certificate has not yet been published. Some of these people aren't exactly puppets, but they're not exactly enemies of the United States or the Zionists. Certain leaders that go down, just basically that their card is pulled. So, like in Egypt, they can be put in there, and then once they need to create unrest, and they allow the people a little pressure release valve to think that they've created change by themselves, and then they move forward. Libya elects Muslim Brotherhood ally as new parliament chief. So lawmakers have elected a new parliament chief to replace the leader. See, this is what I was talking about. Gaddafi would be a good example, right? I mean, for the most part, they kind of left him be. Then all of a sudden they did this. It had nothing to do with Gaddafi being an evil dictator and democracy, Arab Spring, It had to do with creating kind of a vacuum, creating an area of chaos so that that northern Africa region there could be used for smuggling weapons, for smuggling terrorists, and that's exactly what they did. And they just go back and forth. Whether it's Mali, whether it's Syria, Afghanistan, or near Russia, Chechnya. It happens to be that as the Zionists weren't getting what they wanted with Syria and the regime change, now, you know, they had the Turkey instability, people kind of questioning things in Jordan, Lebanon heating up, Iraq heating up, and of course, you know, Syria. And this is all of course, to create a good situation, good preemptive defense or offensive situation for Israel. Libyan intelligence confirms Muslim Brotherhood Egyptian President Morsi involved in Benghazi. So just 2 days after the attack in Benghazi, reports were already coming out that the Muslim Brotherhood-led Egyptian President Morsi was somehow involved in the attacks. Of course, another reason is refugees, right? Angelina Jolie visits refugees from Syria and Libya. And you have Syrians going to Libya now for refugees. And you had Libyans going to Europe. So they say, what? The Syrian refugee crisis, a common EU response is needed. So they have to take in all of these non-European peoples, which is, of course, the change. The point, right, is create that change, that demographic change. Afghan interpreters will be allowed to settle in Britain after another coalition U-turn. That's from May, so just going over it again. We've covered this before. German fighters in Syria raise red flags at home. So they're worried the rebels, who are their common enemy fighting against Assad, will return as terrorists. So can they be accurately termed as jihadists? Well, remember this we just covered. Syria war veterans face label of terror. So Australians fighting with basically an al-Qaeda group in Syria will be labeled as terrorists on their return home. Britain facing grim backlash as a result of military invasions. So they don't just create the terrorists overseas like in Yemen and Somalia and Afghanistan by drone bombing and trying to change their ways and open up these education camps known as schools and try to vaccinate and indoctrinate their women and their children. But you also have this, then you get the influx of these people that you're bombing and stuff like that, these refugees then come into your country. So then there's an immigration issue, but it's not just Muslims, but that's what they like to make it into. So like I said before, if you're anti-immigration, such as the UK, well then now all of a sudden you're anti-Muslim, you're Islamophobe, and that's what's being carried out with the burning of the mosque. This is a complete EDL Zionist operation. It fulfills two goals. Number one, it changes the demographics of the UK, and then of course it fools Christians and fools mostly Christians, but non-Muslims, basically Europeans, into fighting alongside the Zionist Jews. Because the UK is lucky not to be experiencing more hate attacks like the Woolwich murder, which some people say never happened. June, deadliest month of 2013 for U.S. troops in Afghanistan. Well, I thought we pulled out, right? So NATO claims return to pre-surge levels of violence. Hero soldier Neil Priest slashed himself after horror of Iraq. He is among a growing number of ex-service staff suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder. So, remember this, veteran's letter before committing suicide. My body has become a cage and now I'm free, after he killed himself. Syrian Christians, because they're being, like I said, they're having to do some very, how could you put it, non or unhonorable things. Which are not really there to help people, right? They're not really there to help people. They're there to create a complete animosity and hostility towards them by being there. They're there to break up the tribes. They're there to break up the buffer, the resistance, the forced change in the name of democracy, right? And freedom, to get rid of their traditional values. That's who they bomb. Syrian Christians, why is America at war with us? So Syrian Christians are asking why the U.S. supports extremists who want to turn Syria into an Islamic state. There was a testimony came during a congressional hearing on Syria's religious minorities on Tuesday. They said Christians are even more fearful in Syria for their lives and safety than other segments of the population. Why is the U.S. arming rebels that eat human hearts and massacre entire Christian villages? Links will be posted by tomorrow night. Go and check them out. This was a Syrian soldier's last words. Forgive me, Dad. They're going to butcher me. They will behead me right now. Please forgive me. Germans missing for 45 days in Syria have been kidnapped. Guess by who? The terrorists. Zelensky says Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and their Western allies have orchestrated the Syrian crisis. Go figure. The Gulf Cooperation Council, EU, call for political settlement in Syria, i.e. Assad stepped down. Free of Syria, our Friends of Syria battalion will stand with U.S. and Israel, especially when it takes out Israel, to expand another settlement. The water is running out in Gaza. Zionist army recruits break into the Al-Aqsa Mosque. This is GGN and I'm Darko. Thank you.